We are recording.
Terrific. Everybody ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get this show on. The Suamico Village Board meeting for Monday, August 3rd, 2026. The time is 6 p.m. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. Just a reminder for anyone coming forward, please speak directly into the microphone and provide your name and address as we are recording this meeting. Item number 3 this evening, I would look for a motion to approve the evening's agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to offer a motion to approve the evening's agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Trustee Andrews has offered a motion to approve
Second.
the evening's agenda, and that was seconded by trustee Eckert. Any other further discussion, questions, anything else on this evening's agenda? We have a motion to approve, and that motion has been seconded. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, that motion carries. We are 6 this evening, 6-0. All right, let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Item number 5A this evening is a 5-year service award for Michelle Bartoletti. Well, and Mr. Caker, if you would.
Thank you. So Michelle actually started working for the village back in 2015 as a poll worker before becoming the full-time village clerk in 2021. And since then, she's not only been responsible for guiding us through elections, liquor licensing, human resources functions, insurance coverages and claims, open records requests, and much more, but she was instrumental in the implementation of a much-needed third polling location. She became a Wisconsin certified municipal clerk in 2024 and has been one to take on the less glamorous tasks like cleaning up our electronic filing system. She is someone I know that I can trust to act professionally at all times and provides A-plus customer service. The village has been lucky to have you, Michelle, and I thank you for your service to the village.
Thank you so much, Administrator Caker. Appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge the board for their acknowledgement of our employees. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Riddler, did you want to get your picture taken with Michelle?
I'm good. Unless you want to.
I should have asked Michelle if you wanted to get your picture taken with Chief Burley. Never mind, don't answer. We'll just move on.
Maybe later.
We don't need to create any dissension. All right, item 5B, Wetland Mitigation Bank Update, Evergreen Consultants. Administrator Caker, if you would.
Thank you. So I'll invite up Chad Fredette from Evergreen Consultants to lead the discussion on our wetland mitigation bank.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey there.
Michelle, it's been 5 years already been putting up with this. My time is flying. We have a PowerPoint tonight to help out. So it's quite a lot to go through, but we'll get through it quick.
When was the last time we met? You recall, does anybody recall the last time we had an
It would have been last fall at some point.
Last fall, all right. Yeah, it's been a little while.
Yep.
Well, we've been in kind of a holding pattern, just kind of stuck, and with the way the credit releases were set up initially under the old rules, we're just kind of in limbo. But luckily, there's been changes, so we went through all of those documents and figured out a way to change the credit release schedule and habitat metrics and hydrology metrics to accelerate credit releases. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. So we can go to the next screen. So what am I asking for tonight? I want you to authorize me to submit a complete overhaul of your mitigation bank instrument and your compensation site plan. That's that 1,200-page document. So we've gone completely through that and changed everything to your advantage that we can use under the new rules. And then we used a lot of site data to prove that as well. We do have wetland reference sites within the bank, and those were utilized to help us with some of that. And like to approve the simplified release schedule, and then like to have an approval to head towards October construction for the last segment of construction. And we'll go through what those entail, but essentially your October construction is the old stream corridor that we haven't taken advantage of, and putting in a couple of the alternate barriers in place that we need in order to get your large credit releases. Next screen.
Chad, could you talk a little bit about the new rules that you're referring to? Because I don't think,
Yeah, we'll go through those, yeah. I'll go through the new rules and what they mean
Okay.
in
Thank you.
another part of the presentation. It's pretty complicated, so we'll go through those one by one. But for those of you who weren't here in the beginning, this is the bank at a glance. So it's roughly 92.8 acres, consisting of 3 properties, village properties, the Jellens and the Cuxman's property. We were approved for 58.35 credits on the bank, and we have 6.04 acres of area that are at no credit currently, but we are going to be requesting credit for those in our submission, and we have a 10-year monitoring period. Your bank serves the northwestern Lake Michigan, which is good chunk of northeast Wisconsin and down the lake shore. Next slide. So there's 4 main changes that we're looking for in this plan modification. It's a minor plan modification, although it seems major, it's pretty minor. We are going to be inserting the stream channel. We'll change that, which originally was conceived to be floodplain forest and a stream mitigation, and then we're going to change that to wet sedge meadow. That is now 1 credit as wet meadow. And that'll allow you to gain credit on that 6 acres you currently are not getting credit for. And then the rules allow us to consolidate credit types. So we did originally have coniferous swamp and hardwood swamp as separate types, but coniferous swamp isn't mitigated very often. So this is advantageous to change this all to wooded swamp. And then we have performance standards that we're changing, hydrology and vegetation standards, and we're changing those based on site data. And then changes in the 2025 mitigation guidance allow us to make changes that are beneficial to you, and it's lowering some standards to be able to get credits a little quicker and get these banks wrapped up. So what was going on is a lot of people were getting cold feet about getting into banking, and you experience exactly why. It takes several years, many years to get approved, and the standards are high, and so we're going to propose to lower those. And then we have on-site data that on our reference wetlands allows us to further reduce criteria on the habitat side that helps you get credits faster. And then we overhauled the way that credits are released, and that leads to significant amount of credits quicker in this system, and I'll go through that in a little bit. Specifically, the old stream corridor, we were proposing stream mitigation, but after site visit with IRT and Army Corps, they determined that the stream wasn't quite good enough for restoration purposes, so we're changing over to wet meadow. That's the old plan on the left. The picture on the right is what it looks like today. You've got a channel in the center with cattail on either side. You've got upland grasses, and we're going to change that all to wet meadow. Next screen, AIRS has been helping us design this plan. So this is the new plan for the stream corridor. We'll still have some overflow channels to make sure that water can get through in high water events, but we're going to do a lot of what's called hummock hollow topography. It allows amphibian use and some diversification of the plant vegetation, which will help ward off invasive species. And then it was modeled, there was an H&H study done on this to make sure that we're not going to flood out any of the neighbors, but essentially we're going to fill the stream and then excavate a lot of fill that's in that area to create some credits. And this is what the corridor will look like. Today it's all, as you saw, it's a cattail in the center with surrounded by upland grasses. So these pictures are from site. We have zone 1, which you'll see later is more in the north. That's a shallow marsh, wet meadow that's dominated by soft stem bulrush, almost 90%. That's a very interesting wetlands, very nice. And then wet sedge meadow in the south. Very beautiful sedge meadow has grown in that area, very diversified species. And then there's an area of surface water that sticks around for quite a while, and there were thousands of leopard frogs. That's a picture on the right. But that'll be similar to what that corridor will look like, give us a little more diversification of plants out there, more wildlife usage, and getting us credits to be a little easier. Chose wet meadow for that area because it is the easiest to sell credit type. So when we get those credits, you'll sell them fairly quickly. And then one thing to note is that we did a study of the soils before we did construction to see what kind of plants would come out of the soil, and so we did these germination tests. And we didn't find a lot of the species that are appearing there now. So we did have a seed mix. My kids and I collected seeds from around some of our properties, some of our wet meadows that don't have any invasive species, and we still didn't have some of the species that are here. So there is a strong seed bank, which does help with vegetation standards. So that's a good thing that we found over the last 3 years.
You mean the
So-
property has a good seed bank?
Yeah, property is a good seed bank, and I was surprised by that because it didn't come out in our seed bank tests. So having that water there for longer just allowed those plants to germinate. So it's a very good species mix, and that zone 5, which is kind of the southeast part of the site, would already meet vegetation standards if we were in wet meadow situations. So very hopeful that we'll get the rest of the property to look like that as well. Just a side-by-side comparison, just kind of go through this quick, but this is just for the stream corridor. We were doing meandering pools with a stream, now we're just doing sedge wet meadow. Microtopography, we had turtle nesting areas, but without the stream, we don't really need to have that, so we changed that to the Hummock Hollow, just to get some diversification. The community was gonna be floodplain forest, and now it's gonna be herbaceous, no trees, there's trees on the edges. Soil treatment in the area, we weren't gonna do anything before, now we're just gonna put compost in the area on top of the subsoils that are there. Hydrology standards going to be wet meadow, a very easier standard to meet. And herbaceous standards, so it's pretty much just wet meadow versus forest. So currently, there's no credit approved in the old plan, and now we're gonna ask for 4.11 credits for that area.
For what was the stream?
This is for the stream corridor, so that center section, it's 6 acres where there's nothing right now, no credits at all, it's just left as it was. And now we're going to go in and change that, manipulate that to get your credits.
But that's something that will need to be reviewed by the Army Corps, DNR, and
Yes,
discussed.
that's part of our submission. Our submission for this week, should you approve, we'd like to submit on Wednesday, is twofold. One is to add in this habitat change, second is to overhaul the whole plan. And we have to make changes to the plan if we insert something, and the IRT is requiring us to do something with that center area, some sort of vegetative change. And since we have to do something anyway, you may as well get credit for it. So that's why we're doing that submission. And then while we're there, since we have to make changes to your plan to insert this section by adding in a wet meadow category, which you don't have now, we may as well just overhaul the whole thing to the new rules, which the Corps and IRT offered us for us to do, knowing that we have less stringent thresholds to meet for hydrology and habitat. So we want to take advantage of that and overhaul the whole entire proposal. But we're about ready to go on that. If you approve tonight, we'd submit it Wednesday.
Okay, well, we can have questions.
We'll be going back through, we'll
Yeah,
go
I'll hold
through more of those in
questions till the
detail, Sky, but I'll take a question now if you want.
No, go ahead and finish. I'll just make note and hold them till the end.
Very good. This is just again about the stream corridor. Why is this better? Lower long-term risk. So we won't have as many issues with flashy farm drainage. So this will take some of those flood waters. So the site does flood in the spring. And I'm sure Mrs. Jelen can attest to the fact that it floods quite often in the spring. So as we put in this wet meadow, we're going to grade it down and widen it out. So we'll have some flood storage in there, which will help alleviate some of those issues in the spring. And this does work with our existing barriers, so no issue with that. We don't have to do anything. It's actually going to work between 2 barriers. Easier to credit because it's wet meadow. We can get that growing quicker. We don't have the long time that it takes floodplain forest to grow. And then we do have wet meadow standards already in place, so we don't have to come up with any. And this actually work out good for the wood turtles, even though we don't have any of the spawning, the nesting areas up there. They'll still colonize, they'll still use the site. And with the wet meadow there between the trees, they'll be attracted to it, and it'll work out well for them with the hummock hollow topography. And it's a little more diverse, so one thing we lamented about the whole plan when the DNR initially approved it was that we were pretty much forced into a forested situation, but nature's doing what it does out there, and we're getting some diversification, which we'll deal with in the future. And then we're also introducing some diversification here, which will lead to better overall habitat. So this is the big one for you guys. This is hydrology is your biggest credit category. It's 30% of your credits. And to show you that things are working out on site, this is a picture of where one of the barriers go through the site. And you can see on the right, there's Queen Anne's lace. That's the white flower. You can see that on the right, and you don't see it on the left. And there's a very distinct line where those two differentiate. So on the left, it's all wetland grasses and forbs, which would be flowers. And on the right, it's all upland grasses and Queen Anne's lace dominating in the flower area. And that's right where the barrier is at. So there's a very distinct line where those barriers are at on site, and you can see them. So on the left, you're getting hydrology, and the right, it's dry. So things are working on site. And although we do have hydrology in 3 zones on site now, and zone 4 really isn't meeting it yet. This is a picture from zone 4. So we are meeting some low-level hydrology in zone 4 right now, even though it's not meeting it in our groundwater monitoring wells. If you walked out in the site, the whole site looks like a giant wetland. With where the barriers are at, you can see there's upland plants. So it is all working, and we're going to use that to our advantage here in our next submission. So we want to accelerate your credit release. This is all about credits and being able to sell them and earn dollars. This wasn't entirely about wetland restoration. This is about making some money for the village. And so we really want to capitalize on the changes that were made in the guidance documents. So the biggest change that we have is that we can do this in zones now. It used to be an all or nothing. So we would have, you have to meet hydrology through the entire site in a category, no matter what. That was the old rule, and that was really hard. That's kind of why we're stuck in limbo. We have to wait till the hydrology's met for 2 seasons, and we have to plant our trees, and we can't get this credit release until the trees are planted and we're meeting hydrology. Well, now we can break this up into zones. And they actually called them polygons, but we're jumping on and say, hey, we've got a polygon here, and we're tying it to where all the barriers are at. So everywhere on site is chopped up hydrologically by the barriers. So the barriers, if you don't recall, are dug trenches down to a clay layer, and then we pack clay in and compact it in the sand layers and the sandy loam. And it sits just below the surface where you can't see it. So in that last picture that we showed, you couldn't see the barrier. It's not a hump, it's not a berm, it's subsurface. So we're going to capitalize on those as zones. So we divided the site into 7 zones. So each of the site zones can be reviewed for hydrology. So we're currently meeting 3 of the zones for hydrology now, so we should be able to apply for that instead of being stuck in limbo. And we're going to make changes where we can apply for those. And we're going to make the site more uniform. So it's divided up in 18 categories now. Well, we still have subcategories, but we're going to divide into 2 different uniform categories. Either you need to meet hydrology or you don't need to meet hydrology. So what I mean by that is you have areas on site when we delineated initially that were already wetland, so we don't have to add water to those areas. So those go in the non-lift category, so no lift. And then we have upland areas that we're getting credit for. We're putting those in the no lift category. And then we have everything else where we need to get some water back. That's in the lift category. So we're making these into a lift and no lift categories, which allows us to further kind of chop this up into smaller segments that we can meet more quickly instead of the all or nothing categories we've had before. And in the hydrology, we'd like to split that into 2 segments. So before it was 30% all or nothing. That's what you get. When you meet hydrology, you get 30%. And that's based off our 2-year cycle. You have to meet hydrology for 2 years in normal or wet years. And if you get a dry year in the middle, you're stuck for another year. Luckily, we had a couple normal wet years in a row, and we're meeting that in some areas, so we chopped this up into zones. We want to say, hey, we're meeting it for a year, we want 15%. And so what we're saying is, hey, we've earned that year, so give us the 15% credit, and we'll wait till we meet the next one to get our next 15%. And so that's a change we're implementing, is this hydrology split. And then back to your stream corridor, now we're gonna ask for credit, 6 acres without credit, now we're gonna ask for 4.1 credits with 10% released on approval. And then the next thing is setting the standards to what the site can reach. So when you see this 20, 25, 30, and 30, 35, 45, those are species variants that we have to meet. So if we go out to an area and we're reviewing it for our first plant, our first vegetative barrier or benchmark, it has to have 20 different species out there to get our first draw. Well, the current plan is 30, so we're reducing it down from 30 species down to 20. And the second one currently is 35, and then it's 45 for the third release of credits. Well, we're gonna reduce those all down to 20, 25, and 30. Next, we're gonna do an average over the site of 30, because this is based off data we have in our wetland references that are on site. We have 4 of them. And using the data we collected from those wetland reference areas, we're changing what your standards can be, and that's allowed in the new guidance where it was not before. So even though when we initially drafted this document, we had to follow the standard guidance, which was 45 different species at the end of the project within an area. But our site can't reach that. So if you go look at the beautiful reference wetlands that we have, and they are really nice. They're treed, forested, sedges all over the place, animals using them. And the maximum we have is 38 species in one of them. Well, we can't get that to 45, so that's why we're proposing that. And then we want to start planting trees in the spring, and we would plant those in the areas that are meeting hydrology. So we've been waiting and waiting to plant trees, and Alex has really been saying, hey, let's get the community together, let's plant some trees. And I was all for it a year ago, but we didn't meet quite enough hydrology, so we had to wait. So if we plant the trees now, we could drown them out and kill more than we expect to have for mortality after planting. So we're ready now to plant some of those in some zones, and in some zones, we may have to wait a little bit longer for them to meet hydrology and then finish out planting. But before, it was an all or nothing thing. All the trees had to be planted on site before we could ask for that credit. But now with dividing this into zones and our 2 uniform different types of lift and no lift, now we can segment this and ask for credits earlier, which we're going to do. So zoned approach, so here's your 7 zones. The 2 in the north are the largest, zone 1 and 2, and then there are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the south. And those are where our barrier locations are. They segment the site hydrologically, and so it just makes sense to break them up into those areas. Zones 1, 2, and 5 are meeting hydrology on site, vegetatively, as well as in the wells. Zone 3 is kind of on the edge in the middle, so we are placing a barrier there at the south end of zone 3. And then 4, even 4 is a little on the border too. It's almost meeting it, but we're going to check out the south barrier. There might be a spot where it's not quite compacted enough, so we're going to check that out during this fall's construction. And then we're going to look at 6 and 7. 6 is your stream corridor, and that one is going to take a couple of years. And then 7, we just need a little bit more help with a barrier along the ditch, as well as some grading and filling that'll be done in the stream corridor. Will help with those. So those are your 7 zones, where before the whole site was 1 zone, now it's 7. And that will help us capitalize on some credits. But the credits in each zone, zone 1 is 33.4, zone 1, 2, and 5, and zone 3 is 11.2, and 4, 6, and 7 are almost 18. So we're looking really good in zones 1, 2, and 5, and that's 54% of your credits. So we're gonna hit that pretty hard here with our submission, with the evidence that we have that things are going well in site. And should they agree, we'll get a credit release. So we'll start talking about credits. In the next area, you got it up? Okay, so today, this is stream corridor, is 6.04 acres with no credit, and we're gonna move that to wet meadow. And the credit breakdown is below. We really don't really need to go through that. This is establishment, rehabilitation, and establishment. So just quick, briefly, establishments where it was never wetland and we're making it wetland, and that's areas where we had upland soil type that we found on site, and we're going to grade that down and make that wetland. Rehabilitation is where we have some hydrology, and we're just going to make it a little bit better, and it doesn't have vegetation, so rehabilitate that wetland that needs a little help, and then reestablishment's where it's drained, and we're bringing everything back. Vegetation, hydrology. So simpler credit release schedule. This is this hydrologic lift and no lift and the breakdown through the site. What allows us to do is shift more credit release to construction you've already done. So you've spent a whole bunch of money out on site and you're not getting a release for it. And that's why we're just kind of stuck in limbo. But we're going to change that with the zoning and with the hydrologic lift. So you've already done a whole bunch of lift out there. You've done construction, so we're going to ask for that. And we weren't allowed to ask for that before. And then we're asking for the 2 installments in hydrology. Don't mind my spelling error. But so we're going to ask for that at 15 and 15. And some of the zones will ask for all 30 now because they're meeting it. And should our data on our third round here will look as well, we'll try to ask for more areas if they qualify. And so we do have our third season. Spring hydrology is in, we just have to crunch through it. And then everything works out to be the same as 2022. Nothing's changing. You're not getting any more credits except for the stream corridor addition. We're just asking for some of those sooner because you've done a whole bunch of work out there. Why not get some money to pay that back? And then this fall, we'd like to push this hard. We're getting a little late, but it just 1,200 pages takes a little while to get through, but we're there. So our pre-submittal meeting is done, so we don't have to do that. So we'd like to file this on Wednesday. And then the Corps will do their notification. They get their review period. We should get our decision in end of September along with the credit release. And then we have our construction deadline. We would like to get that done in October, November. It's a great time to work on the site. It's always dry and things are going dormant, so we're not destroying existing vegetation. So it's a good time to be out there. Even into December can work as long as the weather holds out. But we do need to bid ahead of the approval. So I'm fairly confident we'll get this. I talked to Ayers about this morning, that we can at least get an initial read from the Corps on these changes. They wanted a memo, a briefing in addition to all the changes so they could see what we're proposing and give us initial nod or hey, you're crazy, hold up. But we are pushing it pretty hard, but I'm confident we'll get the approval in this. So I would like approval to, when we get a good feeling about it, then to have them work on that so that we don't delay the construction and that second credit release based on construction. And then we don't want to run into winter, so if we can get that moving, that would be helpful. And if it does end up pushing to spring, it's not the end of the world, but it's a lot easier to work on that site in the dormant time. Okay, so you've earned a lot of credits. We're just stuck in this limbo and you can't get them. So now if we reconfigure all of this, we should be able to do that. Now you constructed outside the stream corridor in 2023. We've monitored the hydrology in 24, 25, and 26. We are still looking at the 26 data. After there's all these submissions in, we'll get back to that. But a lot of the areas meeting hydrology, and you've constructed it, so let's try to get those credits. Since you've already earned them, let's do that. By changing, we call these rows, so they're all the different habitat types, the creation, we call it, and the restoration, and the rehabilitation. They're all different rows, and we have each of these rows in our different areas. And we've met a lot of that, so we'd like to ask for that. And right now you have about 30 acres that are just all or nothing, and with these changes, we'll be able to ask for quite a bit of those credits. Let's see. I'll wait for questions and let's go to the next schedule. So there's a schedule in here if you want to take a look at this, and you can ask me follow-up questions. Alex can send them to me or you can send them. But here's our construction windows broken apart by the different zones. 1, 2, and 5, and 3 is kind of up in that first that first schedule. So you see it's a little accelerated on those areas. And 4, 6, and 7 have to wait a little longer because they're not meeting hydrology. So when you're doing wetland restoration, it's all about the water, when you get the water back and when you don't. So we've got it back in portions of the site, but not all. So we'll have to do 2 tree planting sessions out there. We'll do the first one hopefully in spring, and then the other one will have to wait a couple of years. Unless they just all of a sudden meet hydrology, but I don't believe 4, 6, and 7 met it even once yet, so we'll still have to wait for 2 seasons before we plant trees. But we are going to finish seeding in the areas, so when this is constructed out, we'll reseed the areas that are disturbed, and then we'll do an overseeding of additional species on the rest of the site, and that's because we've increased our number of species in some of the areas and we've reduced it in others, so we'll have to gain back a few more species. So where there's a lack of species in some areas, we'll overseed, but we're gonna count it as complete construction in those areas, less the trees. And we will be able to ask for those credits now where we couldn't before. And so if you have any follow-up questions on the schedule, just feel free to shoot them over to me, but a lot to take in tonight. Okay, so credits, so where do they land? So if we make these changes to your plan and they approve it, in zones 1, 2, and 5, we're requesting 2.8 credits. In zone 3, we're requesting 1.1, and 4, 6, and 7, we're requesting 1.75. So that's roughly 5.6 to 5.7, 5.65, I think, of credits. That's what we're asking for with this submission on Wednesday, so we're gonna do them concurrent. We can't ask for it in the document change, but the new rules allow us to run them concurrent together, so we will ask for them concurrent. And so hopefully by end of September, you'll get a release of 5.65 acres of credit. And then we're also gonna ask for 1.95 acres of as-built in the 3 different zones. So you've already done that work, why not ask for it? So we'll end up with almost 8 credits we're being asking for by the end of September. And of course, today you don't have any, so if we get 8 by September, that'd be great. I have projects that need the credits. And then we also have the hydrology that we can ask for zones 1, 2, and 5, and possibly 3, so we'll see how those work out. But we can ask for those this winter, so we could potentially ask for another roughly 7.5 credits this winter. So you should receive those, if all goes well, sometime in the middle of winter, maybe February, towards the end of winter. So you could end up with almost 15 credits by end of February, is what we're looking to get here. And then the rest of the schedule goes down based on when we'll see things. So if we get the planting done on the as-built, we can ask for some more credit next year. And then we'll have the subsequent plantings in 2029 when we reach hydrology in other areas. And then we'll start looking at our interim vegetation area. I can tell you despite having cattail, area 5 is already ready on vegetation. That one's probably gonna hit, it's definitely past its interim 1, so that's really good. We can't ask for it quite yet, but that'll be open to us after hydrology's met. So we may be able to start asking for those pretty soon, even ahead of this schedule. So very excited about that. And there's other areas of the site that are looking pretty good, but there is a little bit of work to do. Oh, and then just one last note on barriers. We're still not putting them all in because we don't need them all. So in original submission, we had a staggered construction approach. We put in the initial barriers that we thought were appropriate based on modeling, and then we'd see what happens. And that's where we're at. We saw what happened. We have many areas that meet hydrology, and we have some areas that don't, so that's where we're going back and putting in 3.5 of the barriers that are in the plan as alternates. And then we're leaving out several that we don't need because we're meeting hydrology. And we saw what happened in the southeast corner when we put too many barriers in. So that area was already kind of wet, and when we put the barrier in, it inundated the whole area. I think I've been calling it Lake Jelen or Lake Suamico, but it looked like a lake for a while. It sits with surface water almost the entire year. And now it's actually become a very good, varied feature in the landscape. And we did talk about filling that with the IRT and the core, but they said don't. They'll just do a habitat change later in the process as things develop out. So you'll still get credit for that area, just maybe a different credit type was actually okay. because some of the other credit types sell quicker, so I'm okay with that. And so we took the off-ramp and went with them on that. So then here's on the next slide, we'll go through how they get released. It's a little confusing how this all works, but we're modifying your plan to allow us to more quickly release these credits. So your bank was front-loaded in the beginning. And what I mean by that is your 10% that was released when you initially signed the agreement wasn't spread across each habitat type. It was geared just to like the upland areas. And so that kind of leaves us in limbo when we're meeting, we have construction completed. Oh, we can't get that 5% on the interim construction. Then we get second construction done. We can't get that. Well, now we can if they approve this new plan. So it'll respread that 10% out across the whole project instead of just piling everything up on upland areas and upland buffers and enhancement. We'll spread it out across the site, and that unlocks a lot of the credits, and that's how we're able to request these credits, and that's done by zone. So now we're zoning out our different credit releases rather than just an all-or-nothing approach as it was before. So this just breaks down what we're eligible for now, and that we're going to try and get these near 15 credits. So we're going to submit right away for a good chunk of them, and then we'll apply for the rest in the fall and winter here. Okay, housekeeping stuff. So again, we're just changing this to a wooded swamp credit type instead of coniferous swamp and hardwood swamp. So we'll have wooded swamp and we'll have wet meadow, and both of those sell. I think your Lineville project that you mitigated required hardwood swamp, and you had it, so that was really good. Performance standards are being updated. They're following all the new guidances. The biggest change were in the 2025 Wisconsin mitigation guidelines, which were very favorable changes to you. And I guess I could say we don't have to do these changes. You're not required. You're grandfathered in, but I really would recommend doing these. Obviously, we can apply for credits. And then our reference data is really supportive, and this is the big change on this species diversification. It seems like a little thing, but down the road, in 5 years, when we're looking at trying to get all of your vegetation credits out, this will have a big impact that we're going to bring this down to 30 species instead of 45. So that's a big change, but it's supported by the reference wetlands. And in the 3 different reference wetlands, it's 36, 28, and 31 species. We have an average of 30 roughly species, so that's why we're proposing that. In our seed mixes, we're changing to 1 seed mix instead of the different mixes we had before. We're changing to 1, but we're upping the native species component by another 18 species, just to get you that diversification on the need to make it over the threshold down the road. But we'll do some overseeding and some spot seeding. And just what things look like again, so the left is a stream corridor. On the right, we have volunteer cottonwood and willow coming in, so we have quite a bit of trees out there. They're more sporadic, and they're not widespread ubiquitous. They're in little patches, but at least that's helpful. They are coming out. They'll save us. I think those will be the trees that are your long-lived. So we can plant bare rootstock, but the seeded ones generally tend to take over after time. And we have 3 growing seasons of evidence to support that things are looking pretty well out there. Next slide. We do have invasive species out there. We have reed canary grass and a few large patches, but nothing too crazy out there. And then we have a little bit of infiltration of reed canary grass in smaller little patches around the site, but not too concerned about that now. We do have a little bit of Phragmites out there on the edges and a few in the center, but that should be able to be taken care of easily by spot herbicide treatment. And then we have purple loosestrife showing up mostly on the south end. And then there is also an encroachment, but I'll talk to village staff about how we want to deal with the encroachment by the neighbor and the mowing they're doing. We'll talk to them about, but they'll be seeing construction hopefully soon, and that'll probably end that one because there's going to be some fill on their property line. And then the village staff is very helpful on the site. They've done a lot of surveying out there and just general discussions about issues we're having. And then they also designed and made these raptor perches, which my staff says raptors use, and Mrs. Jalen just said that they have hawks that utilize those. So that'll become very helpful after we plant the trees. That'll help with rodents out there. As well as a deer fence will help too, but deer tend to break through it sometimes. You can still get the rabbits and other rodents, and that'll help with the raptor perches. And then evergreen staff, we've volunteered over 100 hours out there pulling invasive species and doing monitoring well repair. And what we found, I haven't found this at other sites, but at Suamico, the deer really like to chew on the cords on the monitoring wells, and they're all sending to 2 units on site that are all connected to the internet. So when they chew on, at least when they chew on it, we know that when something goes down, but they've been eating a lot of the cords. So we've got a fix for that finally, though. So and then the deer fence will help too. But we've done a bunch of work out there just to help the village along in this project. And a lot of these things, the vegetation doesn't matter about the credit releases now. That's a more of a down the road issue when we're trying to meet vegetative standards, and those don't come in for a while. So all this does mean something, but doesn't mean anything right now to these credit releases or the hydrology, because that's all independent of this. But we do have to keep tabs on the invasive species and make sure we're taking care of those. So what I'm asking for you tonight is authorization to go ahead with this refiling, because it's a complete revamp of your entire plan. It's entirely different from what we submitted before and was approved. And then to allow the engineers to go forth with bidding after we get some sort of positive response from the IRT. And that way we can keep our construction schedule on course. And we're meeting everything else. You'll be under your letter of credit, and we already have pre-submittal and seed mixing pricing should be within budget. We haven't seen any significant increases in that, and then we'll deal with the rivet stuff. That's the core system once we're approved. So that's the end of my presentation. I'll have you take any questions. It's a lot to take in. It's kind of overwhelming to me. I feel really old, but I'm happy this is about done. But for this submission anyway.
So one question I had, so holding pattern stuck, that came up a number of times. So that was the result of the criteria being that we had to achieve 100% hydrology across the entire property. Who has now changed that rule?
So those are the old rules, and Wisconsin DNR changed those rules. And with work with the IRT.
And
And the
they've all
Corps.
accepted those rules,
Mhm.
so we don't have any.
They said we should change to the new rules. It would be beneficial to us. And so we went through the rules to see where we could apply them, everywhere we could apply them, and we've applied them everywhere we can apply them to help you.
Okay, so another question. So approval was mentioned. We were looking at approval September 24th. Is that a hard date, or could that push or pull or move?
Oh, it depends on if they have any big changes, but generally that would be a hard date. If they're good with the changes, they have a little comment period, and then they have an approval window, and then that would be their approval. So if they're happy with the changes, which I'm hoping they are, then that would be your deadline. If they're not,
When would we
they
hear if they
can-
were happy with the changes?
They have a 15-day comment
Okay,
period.
so
we'll
once
hear
you turned
within
it in
that
on
15
Wednesday of
days.
this week, then
15 days from then, yeah.
15 days, they would say either do X, Y, or Z, or we're happy with it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that with the memo, they'll get us an answer a little quicker.
Yeah.
So they wanted a summary memo, and we have that prepared too.
Okay, time to get out your crystal ball.
I wish I could hard date them on that, but if we did a good job here, they should disapprove it.
I'm with you on that one, but chances of change again. Just because, I mean, you know, when we look at this, we've been at this for such a long period of time. And, you know, with this approval, with this approval being, with the 100% hydrology being expected, I kind of understand why it got hung up. But now that it's not hung up again, my biggest fear with this has always been the fact that, are we going to move forward and all of a sudden wetland mitigation banks aren't going to be a thing anymore? There was a time, wasn't there a time with the assembly when they were going to get rid of wetland mitigation banks?
There was a time,
After
but
we
that's long
initiated our-
past. Even the Republicans are good with these now. So there's no, the last changes they were made were positive
Yeah,
for mitigation banks. They capped what the in lieu fee when you could go to in lieu fees, which was a good thing for mitigation banks overall, because it gave you a way to increase your credit costs and recoup your construction costs. And when we revamped all the wetland exemption regulations, we included mitigation in those. And so that's actually been a big driver of mitigation lately, are the exemption bills, and I was one of the drafters of that. And we wanted to make sure that people had an easier path to filling wetlands that were inconsequential and a mitigation factor behind a lot of those fills. So the non-federal exemptions is one of the big categories of mitigation now. So I don't see this going away anytime soon.
Okay. That's, thanks for the crystal ball. Last question then. So the species richness, so current species richness in zones 7, 6, and 4, did you say that was 38, at 38?
No, they're all down at the 20, 30, 35.
But isn't that the requirement? So is it the requirement 25, 30, and 35 for
20,
species?
20, 25, and 30 is what we're proposing. The current, what you're under now is based on published guidance, and that's 30, 35, and 45, and
Yeah.
that's the current one, but we can propose with on-site data that we can't meet that. And so we have direct evidence that our natural wetlands that are fully functional and what we're striving for don't meet that.
They maximize out at 20 or 25.
Yeah, there's one at 38, there's one at 28, one at 31, I think. And that was done by time meander study and floristic quality analysis that I conducted back in quite a while ago, but
Okay.
it hasn't changed much since. So since we have direct evidence on site, I expect that one will get approved.
Okay. Just maybe one last question for Administrator Caker. Do you recall, or maybe this is for Director Demeny, the number of credits so far that we've gotten on this? Was it 4?
Um,
4 that we sold at $70,000 each?
5.83.
Sorry, was it 5.3?
Yeah, it was closer to 6.
Yeah.
Closer to 6? And I think they came in at about 70,000 apiece.
It was more than that. I think the 70,000 was for the Lionville project.
Yes.
But current rates for a credit would be closer to 160,000.
Yeah,
today's
we
dollars.
gave a discount to Brown County being a,
Yeah,
yeah,
we did,
I remember that. But it was 70,000 and it was 4 credits
somewhere around there.
around there.
Yeah,
So-
you have that ability to discount your credit prices. You do have one competitor that discounts their prices at Sheboygan County, but they only discount their prices for businesses in Sheboygan County.
Not only do they only discount it, they only sell it to projects within Sheboygan
Yeah.
County.
Yeah. So you do have some competition in Sheboygan County, but they don't sell outside of that area.
Okay, that's all the questions. I'll turn it over to somebody else smarter than me.
Has Sheboygan County followed any of these changes too?
I don't know if they have made any changes to those. I don't know.
They're further
It's a
established.
good question. I don't know the answer to that one, if they have. Yeah, they're a little further along.
I'd also add, I don't believe the village board needs to take any action. Your role in this project is approving the budget, which you have approved the budget. You've approved for construction in 2026. This is more of a administrative engineering modification to the plan. And then ultimately, the board will have a final say once and if bids come back for construction. And then the concept about accepting the bidding risk, again, that's more of an administrative process. Worst case scenario, we let it out for bid. DNR comes back and says, oh, you actually can't do X, Y, or Z. We would issue an addendum to that bid package and/or void that contract and then rebid it. So there's really not any financial risk if you were to bid it before the final approval came.
Hey, one less thing for you to do. Perfect. Let's come back to you for the money request.
Well, that answered my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have 2 questions for you. They're both quick and easy. Can this presentation be added to the minutes or to the packet for the minutes?
Okay. And we'll add it to the website. So we have a webpage dedicated to the wetland bank. We can
Perfect.
include it. And I can send you a copy.
And in general, looking across the entire mass of the space, how wet will it be? Like in the spring, is it something you can like walk through and not get wet most of it? Or is it kind of like, no, it's pretty much a marsh and you're gonna sink in if you try to walk through it?
That's a good question. So you're going to have all of the above. You're going to have areas that you'll need waders on to cross, and you're going to need areas, you're going to have areas you can walk in tennis shoes. So it just depends, but spring is the wetter period. So I'd expect in spring, much of the site's going to be pretty squishy, but become June-ish and most of it dries up and you'll have those really wet areas, those few wet areas.
That's it. That's all I got.
Others?
I think it was a great
Good.
update.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with this one. This is better than a lot of the other updates. I'm real happy we can make something happen here. You know, we've kind of been languishing in that limbo, and this, the new changes gave us a way out, and we're taking it.
I'm just nervous. I'm very, very nervous. I mean, because we've been at this for so long, and having been in limbo now for so long, and we're dealing with who we're dealing with, and the amount of legal hoops, and how things have changed. Let's just get this through.
Yes.
Just get this through.
If we get this change approved, it's going to make this a lot easier.
Yeah. And I mean, if we, you know, because at some point, you know, I mean, if we have to look at additional support, you know, to get this through, we got to get this through. To the point where we're not having to deal with other outside agencies, and the element of change is gone, right? And then we can just manage the piece of property.
I'm hopeful, and I'm positive right now.
Okay.
Good staff, really good people we're working with, and they suggested that we take a lot of these changes.
I mean, I still
Even
don't-
offered to help do it, but I've combed through it. I think I'm happy. I'll take her help, but I want it as an approval.
I mean, I think there were three of us on this board who were here when this all started, some time ago, three of us remaining, and I understand that there was trepidation from the very beginning, and rightfully so. But, you know, in my estimation, as we're sitting here today, besides being a long haul and how we've been stagnant for so long on this, you know, the dollars, when you add up the dollars on this, the dollars still make sense. You know, when you're looking at 5 credits at more than $70,000 a piece, and the potential for it. And then you look at what that land was yielding before that, and how that land is gonna be preserved for a very long time, representative of what Suamico really truly was. You know, back in the very, very old days.
You know, back when we started working mitigation banks, it was 16,000 a credit.
Yeah.
Now your wet meadow credits are minimum 100,000, and then forested credits can be 130, 160.
But you gotta preface that, because it's like selling something on eBay, right? They're only worth that much if you can find somebody who wants to pay that much for the
That's
baseball
right.
card.
But luckily, you've got a base that has to buy, some of them have to
Yeah.
buy from you, so at least you have some of that, but it's not for the faint of heart, for sure.
Well, that's for sure.
And it takes a long time, but
I would
think
never
these changes are
recommend it to
making it easier.
anybody.
But we'll see. No, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you have a stomach for a
It's long range.
long approvals and a lot of money sunk into it.
And it's long range. It's very long range. I mean, there's long range visioning, and then there's really long range visioning, and this is,
But they made these changes to make it easier for people to get in.
Thank goodness.
Easier to operate, and thank goodness they did, because we can have a way out of limbo now.
thank goodness. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Any follow-up questions, just shoot them to Alex, or you can email me directly. Happy to help. Thank you much.
Great, thank you.
Good day.
This wetland mitigation bank reminds me of my own mortality, as you've been watching the timeline of this.
They're
There's a
called
pretty good-
legacy projects.
Pretty strong likelihood that I won't be here to see this one finish out. But anyway, thank you. All right, everybody ready to go on?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going on. That was a wetland mitigation bank. That was item 5B. We are on to item 6, public appearances. This is for anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak to an item not on the agenda. Provide your name and address and let us know what's on your mind. Anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward to speak to an item not on the agenda, here's your opportunity. Going once. Anyone? 2? Last time. All right, no one here to speak publicly on an item not on the agenda. That gets us to the consent agenda this evening. The consent agenda consists of previous minutes of the village board dated July 20th, 2026, and item B, June 2026 fire department report. Item C, May 2026 animal control report. Item D, committee appointments 2026 through 2027. Has everyone had a chance to look at the consent agenda? Are there any questions or discussion on items within the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Trustee Eckert has offered a motion to approve, and that has been seconded by trustee Romas. Anyone else? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Very good. Item 8, this evening, planning and zoning items. 8A is a public hearing, the village's intent to vacate the unused portion of the right-of-way of Cardinal Lane being part of the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of section 33T25 NR20E. Zoning Administrator Dunks.
Thank you. This Cardinal Lane had intersected with both White Pine and Velp, pre-2005. The road was redirected to White Pine, west of the Escanaba Lake Superior tracks to alleviate some of the congestion at Velp. That portion was discontinued, and has never been formally, I guess, discontinued rather than vacated. This is only for the village right-of-way portion. We have no utilities in that to discontinue. Any easements for any other utilities will be up to the property owners to gain release of those, should they need that. We do expect that each adjacent property would receive half of the discontinued right-of-way.
Steve, I know you had talked about the little notch on the corner. Do they have an updated exhibit?
Yeah, there's an updated exhibit. Did I put the wrong one in the packet?
I believe so. That's okay, as long as it's included in the final version.
So the easements for the utilities will remain unless the future owners request through each utility vacation of those easements.
Correct.
Either way you look at it, that the White Pine Velp corner should be water and sewer, right? They can't just decide not to be?
We're talking about WPS easements.
Okay.
We're talking about cable easements, the actual utilities outside of our jurisdiction.
But it wouldn't be so simple for that future owner to just say, nope, don't want water and sewer. So
It
they
has
won't.
nothing to do with
Okay,
future water and sewer connections.
but that is the plan on that corner, if everything else,
The plan is for that at some point to develop and be on sewer and
Okay.
water, yes.
okay,
This has
nothing to do with that.
nothing to do with,
Okay,
It's not an easement so that they can't put in sewer and water. in
There
other
you go.
words. Yeah,
no, the sewer and water go down existing roadways
yeah.
within our right-of-way.
It wouldn't, and if you think about, you remember the map we looked at, was it last meeting or whatever? Probably our number one area that we have to, increase sewer and water usage and users is there.
No,
I mean-
all of our sewer and water construction typically takes place within the right-of-way, not within utilities.
Okay.
WPS has a gas main going through there right now.
it just, the way that's worded, it was vague. Just making sure.
Yep. Other questions? Questions for the good zoning administrator? Hearing
I
none?
have one.
You gotta take a compliment when you get it. They don't come that often, even if they're vague. Okay, I don't hear any other discussion on this. Is there a motion then on this particular item?
President Van Rossum, you'd have to open the public
Oh.
hearing, ask 3 times for comment, and then close the public hearing.
Thank you for the reminder.
Very nice of the
We've
3
never
times.
enforced the 3 times.
Per Robert's Rules of Order.
Better make
you
sure we
need
do
3
that.
times.
All right, so opening this up, we are in a public hearing, so I don't have to open it up. It's a public hearing.
You would open the floor.
Motion to open the floor.
You don't need
Okay.
a motion.
We've got a motion to open the floor for public comment. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from trustee Andrews. All in favor of opening the floor for public comment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries 6-0. The floor is open for public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment? Is there anyone wishing to make public comment? Hello, hello, is there anyone wishing to make public comment? That was 3 times. There is no one wishing to make public comment. Is there a motion to,
Motion to close.
thank you, motion to close the public hearing, and who seconded that?
I did.
Trustee Romas seconded that motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor of closing public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries 6-0. What would you like us to do now?
You would move on to item 8B, which is to act on the resolution.
Excellent. I just wanted to make sure. All right. 8B, act on resolution 26011 to vacate the unused portion of the right-of-way of Cardinal Lane. This will be a roll call vote. Is there any further discussion on this particular item? If there is none, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Resolution 26011, discontinuing a portion of Cardinal Lane as detailed in Exhibit A.
Trustee McKeefery has offered a motion to approve Resolution 26011, discontinuing a portion of Cardinal Lane as detailed in Exhibit A.
Second.
And I have a second from Trustee Romas on that particular item. Last chance for any further discussion, comments. Hearing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Eckert.
Aye.
Trustee McKeefery.
Aye.
Trustee Romas.
Aye.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Okay. Item 8C this evening is a public hearing, municipal code amendment to Chapter 18, the zoning code, to amend 18.04, Parent 5, Parent A, minimum floor area to include the minimum size of a residential dwelling shall be the finished space above grade as required by each separate residential or agricultural zoning classification. Zoning Administrator Dunks.
Thank you. Right now, the dwelling standards require a minimum floor area in that section of a minimum of 1,200 square feet above grade. Our changes last year to the residential code when we created the sewer district code, when we created the 3 separate classifications, actually reduced that down to 800 square feet in the RS3. And we're looking to remove that language within 18.04 to adjust to reflect that change. So we're asking that the minimum floor area, minimum size of the residential dwelling shall be the finished space above grade as required by each separate residential or agricultural zoning classification. It's just more to clean anything up. It's not changing anything. It was just missed when we did the code changes last year.
Okay. Questions for zoning administrator Dunks? Anyone?
Isn't that kind of creating a low-rent district?
We're not changing anything that wasn't changed already last year at, what, in July, June? Whenever we made that,
I didn't agree with it then either,
Well-
so.
we're not creating a low rent district. We might be creating, with our R3, an area that's more affordable for some to stay within the village of Suamico, but that's a totally different discussion, and we're just trying to clean up the language because we have a conflict in our code, and it should have been changed along with those changes that went into effect last year.
All right, additional questions or comments for zoning administrator Dunks on this? Otherwise, being a quick learner, I'll look for a motion to open this up for public hearing.
So on the motion, you don't need a motion to open the public hearing. You
Then we'll just-
you call for it and then you.
But we had so much fun the last time.
I
Why wouldn't we do
know.
it this time?
Who's ever roll call, whether we-
All right,
But
never
it's not
mind.
necessary.
Trustee Eckert doesn't get the opportunity to offer a motion then. I'm sorry. All right, let's open this up for public, hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward on this particular item, municipal code amendment to chapter 18 of the zoning code to amend 18.04, et cetera, et cetera? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? Welcome.
Hello. Tom Lund, 2091 Maggie Lane. So where do we have the residential zoning 3 area in the village?
Last year about this time, we took the residential sewer district and we went from residential sewer to residential sewer 1, which encompassed the entire old RS zoning. We created the ability to go to an RS2 zoning and an RS3 zoning.
So where is RS3? Do you have a map?
No place right now.
Well, you don't have a map of it. Okay.
Well, we haven't created any reclassifications. Our expected would be around the Chambers Hill bar area, would be our number one location where we would expect more of a denser population, likely multifamily as part of that, because no,
Well, okay. So
Creating traffic
I don't-
problems. on the
so-
highway.
here's my feeling. So 800 square feet, we already have apartments in Suamico, right? So the building is more than 800 square feet. Where would we be putting a house that's only 800 square feet? I don't think we're going to be putting tiny houses in residential areas in Suamico.
our RS3 zoning allows for single-family homes
Yeah,
on smaller lots. Those lots wouldn't be large enough probably for a 1,200 square foot home. They can, in RS3, they can have single-family home, they can have duplex, they can have multifamily. It's all by code now instead of all being through PDDs and whatnot. And we've already changed that, created that. We have an RS3 classification that allows a dwelling unit to be 800 square feet. If it's an apartment building, each apartment unit would need to be that 800 square feet, not the entire apartment building. It's already created. This is a conflict in our code that was overlooked when we did this last year, and it's a cleanup of the code. We are not changing how anything else is being implemented. This is just a cleanup of code language that was missed when we did the thorough code change last year.
That's when we created RS3,
That's when we created the three separate classifications, yes.
to get rid of the PDDs. Not, well, I mean, you can still have them, but.
Not to get rid of them, but to make,
Yeah. Streamline the process.
yes,
What's the width of an RS3 lot again?
I believe 65,
About 60.
60 to 65.
And does
RS1 is now down to 70, so.
Does this 800 square foot require a one-stall garage attached to it?
We still require, if it's a one-bedroom, they must have a one-stall garage. If it's a two-bedroom or greater, they must have a two-stall garage. That's for all of your RS zonings. And that's not part of this discussion tonight. That's something that was already implemented in our code
I just wanted to
change.
know if the 800 square feet included the garage.
That's not finished space.
That's not livable space. It didn't say that,
It says finished space above grade.
right.
It's not a garage.
It's creating a ton of apartments,
Yeah.
basically.
well,
I've seen some nice garages.
apartment's an apartment, but this is
I
like,
think that's a
this
gross
is like
over,
a tiny house type situation.
it's a, those
Not
are,
an apartment.
those are gross overgeneralizations. You don't know that. You don't know that it's creating apartments or tiny houses. What it does is it gives us the ability, because these are still approved by planning and zoning and still approved by, a recommendation made by planning and zoning and approved by the board, any plan that comes forward. What this does is this gives us options and gives the community options. If we decide to pursue those options, that's the responsibility of every trustee who sits on this board. And citizens get to speak out on it and et cetera, depending on where it's at. The idea was Chambers Hill, the issue with Chambers Hill is a single-family dwelling who's gonna have little kids probably isn't going to spend the amount of money it's gonna cost for a home to live in back of a bar. Now, on the other hand, apartments may,
And this was a mechanism
possibly.
to, when
Or
we go through our
multifamily.
comprehensive plan, we will show those areas more effectively within our new comprehensive plan. on what areas and what the density we anticipate that zoning to be.
And I think another way to look at this 800 square feet is it's a good opportunity for a starter home. If a house is being built at $300 a square foot, the person now has to spend $240,000 on a home. Give a person or give a individual or maybe a couple, sure, it's small, but then what they're doing is they're investing in something. Instead of paying money for rent for an 800 square foot apartment, now they've got it's a smaller home, sure, it's true. Or maybe they do the 800 square foot and they make it a two-story. Think Archie Bunker, right? Those houses used to exist, they just didn't have garages.
And again, this is to clean up something that was missed. It's not to change how our code is implemented. We
I think it-
already have those three zones.
I think it builds freedom and for individuals to build what they want to build.
It builds less freedom for us to be able to keep a lot of low-cost housing.
What's the problem with low-cost housing? Because don't confuse, I mean, the thing is, my complaint is we don't want to conflate low-cost housing with some of the other problems that we may see in society.
Okay, welfare
Because-
housing.
Well, okay, so but if a person is building an 800 square foot house, they're still, I mean, we're not talking about subsidized housing.
I think we are.
Well, that's a whole different conversation.
Okay,
If
so
we're
you have
talking
to
800 square
remember,
foot house, it's a house that someone can afford to build who makes $60,000 a year.
you have to remember it's 800 minimum. And-
Correct.
And they could go up to.
They can go whatever they want, whatever fits on the lot.
Whatever. Let's say it's
Yeah.
1,000 square feet,
1,200.
1,200,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean,
that-
you still have to go stormwater management, if you have smaller lot, you have more roof per the lot. I mean, there's a lot of things, because you gotta put stormwater management in any type of subdivision you put there. So if you put a bunch of small houses, you might have a big pond or a couple ponds.
Retention.
Retention ponds. You're gonna have to have those, regardless if you have a small house or big house. But a big lot will have less hard surface on it than a bunch of small lots.
But you
So you gotta
also,
think about that. But, I mean, I have a question for Alex on this. So was this because of some federal requirements that you went to smaller?
No,
Is this
so
something that we
this
weren't
this
within
code,
compliance or something?
no, Tom, this
For
code
affordable
change is like if in some area of the code, we had said you can only have red and blue houses. And then in another part of the code, it says you can only have red houses. Well, they're in conflict. So that's what's happening here, is we have language in two spots that are conflicting. We're fixing those conflicting issues. That's all we're doing here. We're not adding or changing anything to the code.
Okay. Well, I guess my questions are answered, you know.
It'll be a lot of traffic on your county highway.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I worry about the land right here. We could go to tiny houses right behind the village hall.
But
I mean, that's
before
right
we-
next to my
hold on, okay,
subdivision
all right.
with bigger houses.
We're in multiple conversations. There has been many meetings like this, many presentations of how we got to the zoning. And so, but we're not talking about changing the zoning. And so I think I can appreciate, these perspectives, but that's not what's being asked tonight. This is really about cleaning up the vocabulary that lines up with the zoning, not to debate whether the different types of zone and how many square feet we have. That's a different conversation.
Well, you're doing your comp plan right now, right?
We are.
Okay.
and I think, let's think about it in a different way. This doesn't have to be low-income housing.
Exactly.
This could be housing for me, to sell my house and live in Suamico. I only use half my house. And be able to, the reason a lot of us are our age are not selling our house because it's a wash. We go to a smaller house and we haven't even gained anything. Where I could finally build a smaller house on a smaller lot. I could sell my house and I could pocket some money and live in a small place. So think about it for the seniors. I know many people out here in Suamico that are looking for something to downsize. So you got to stop thinking that this is just for low-income people. It's not. It could potentially be a great thing that we don't have in Suamico for older people.
So I would reference the conference, and for you Supervisor Lund, I mean, come to the comprehensive plan meetings that we're having. These are the discussions that we're having at the comprehensive plan meetings. The discussion that we're having tonight about the zoning RS 1, 2, and 3, there were discussions all of last year that led up to finally a vote last year on that I think was a 6-1 vote to change those to RS 1, 2, and 3 at that time. So, and this is just the language as it's been stated to clear that up. Now, going forward, what we're going to, where we're going to be putting these buildings or how we're going to treat, these residential structures, where they're going to be. That's the planning and that's the comprehensive plan committee, which has 7 citizen representatives and is open to the public and meets after every planning and zoning meeting. That's the next step that we're starting to move into right now is where are these areas going to be? If we have an RS3, where is an RS3? What is an appropriate RS3 area? Those are the discussions I think coming. And I don't think, you talk about tiny houses. Brown County has an excellent tiny house development for veterans that they've been working on. Terrific. And there has been discussion at the comprehensive plan level about, do we have any opportunity where we could do something for senior housing like that, a tiny house development in the village of Suamico? I think the consensus thus far, although there are options, is no, we don't, because we just don't have the land for it. But that comprehensive planning committee, made up of citizens, is having those discussions and has a vote in this that they make recommendations to the Planning and Zoning Committee, which will make recommendations to this board, and then the board will have to make those decisions with citizens commenting all along the way. So I think there's a lot of what you're trying to get at and what you're interested in. I think there's a lot of that that's undecided and at that level right now, and would benefit from public comment.
And that meets every second Tuesday, or Monday.
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 Except
Every
this
second
one.
Monday. You're more than welcome to participate. We'd love to hear your perspectives.
I show up every time.
But there's not
Unless I'm
one
traveling.
next week, Monday.
What?
There is not a
Brown
meeting
County
next
couldn't
week.
make it.
Brown
County
County does
lets
not
us-
have their stuff
Ready.
ready to
That's
present.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm guessing there's no one else, but I'll ask 3 times just in case. Is there any other public comment? This is a public hearing. Is there any other public comments? Last time, public hearing, is there any other public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 8D, which is act on ordinance 2026-05 to amend chapter 18.04, parent 5, parent A, minimum floor area. This will be a roll call vote. Anything else to share, Administrator Dunks? Sorry, yes, Mr. Dunks, anything else to add?
More than enough has been discussed.
Okay, anyone else with comments on this particular item? Okay, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 2026-05, modifying 18.04 parens 5 parens A, minimum floor area, minimum size of a residential dwelling shall be the finished space above grade as required by each separate residential or agricultural zoning classification, because what this does is this removes an inherent conflict inside of our code and references the subsections to determine the area.
Thank you. That motion was made in its entirety by trustee Romas. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from trustee Andrews on that motion. Last chance for any questions or discussion. Roll call, please.
Trustee Eckert,
Nay.
trustee McKeefery,
Aye.
Trustee Gomez.
Aye.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-1. Thank you.
Okay. Item 8E this evening is also a public hearing. This is a public hearing on the municipal code amendment to Chapter 17, the subdivision code, to include the requirement of building elevations on the face of the plat. Zoning Administrator Dunks, if you would.
Thank you. Due to recent issues, mainly this spring, created by the unusually heavy spring rains and continued staff concerns with additional new homes being constructed with at-risk situations, staff looked at possible adoption of language within the subdivision ordinance, which would alleviate some of these concerns. We had some new construction homes with at-grade exposed basement windows that took on water during those heavy rains. We also had additional homes built after that with the same risks, and we really don't have anything in our language that we can have, that assist us in making sure this does not continue to be an issue. So we're suggesting that we add 17.05, parents 8, stormwater management and drainage protections. A would require the minimum lowest opening elevations be required for all lots adjacent to a stormwater management basin, drainage easement, floodplain, natural overland flow, or natural depression area. The stormwater designer, engineer, professional shall determine or approve a minimum lowest opening elevation. B would require, that would be the plat requirement. The final plat or certified survey map shall explicitly display the required minimum lowest opening elevation for each applicable lot. Lots subject to this restriction shall be clearly identified on the face of the plat with a visual graphic indicator such as a circle lot number and accompanied by a mandatory restrictive covenant note. And then C, for compliance, no building permits shall be issued for a structure on a identified lot unless the building plans demonstrate that all structural openings, including first floor sills, basement lookout windows, and egress openings are designed at or above the designed minimum lowest opening elevation. If the as-built elevation is in question, the building inspector may request certification from a registered land surveyor and/or professional engineer prior to issuance of the occupancy permit. Thank you.
All right, are there questions for Zoning Administrator Dunks on this particular item?
Could you I'm just not sure I understood one thing. It says, could you clarify what the as-built elevation is derived from? Is that you go there and is it after it's been built or something? You go there.
The as-built is after it's been built.
So you go there and you measure it and you say, hey, you guys were below, okay, all right.
If, you know.
I got you. I understand now. That's,
Okay, this is also a public hearing. So is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak to this item? Anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak to this item? Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak to this item? All right, hearing none. Are there any further questions on this, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2026-06, creating chapter 17.05, parens 8, stormwater management and drainage protections, requiring minimum lowest opening elevations on plats or certified survey maps to inform property owners and builders of a risk that they can avoid.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor from trustee Romus that has been seconded by trustee McKeefrey for the approval of this item as stated. An act on ordinance 2026-06 to amend chapter 17 of the subdivision code. That motion has been made and seconded for approval. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Trustee McKeefrey.
Aye.
Trustee Gomez.
Aye.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Eckert.
Aye.
President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 9 this evening is convene into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, in this case, union bargaining. We will also be addressing item B, which is per Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parent 1, parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This, in this case, is the annual village administrator performance review. Is there a motion to move into, to convene into closed session?
So moved.
Trustee Romas has offered a motion to move into closed session. I will offer a second on that. All those in favor of moving into
That has
closed?
to be
Well, we
roll
need
call.
the roll call, sorry.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Eckert.
Aye.
Trustee McKeefery.
Aye.
Trustee Romas.
I
President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
need to find